You won't believe how much landed sellers are making in 2025. I'm Sarahxmiracle, mom of four, content creator and realtor, and today we're going to talk about some of the latest 2025 landed transactions, just a little example of what has already gone on. There's already been increase in the market from Q4 of last year into the first quarter of 2025. And so I want to share with you because everyone's curious, right? Like, how much did these people actually buy these homes for and how much are they making? And could selling your landed home be the next step? That's something that we all want to talk about today. Before we get into it, I make videos like this every week. And so if you like content about real estate and you want to find out more about how you can be empowered to make the right decisions, no matter what stage you're in life, be sure to click the like button and give us a subscribe. Firstly, I'm going to be covering an overview of the landed segment, how much prices have appreciated over the last 25, 15, and 17 years. Secondly, I'll also be showing you the most recent transactions of semi-detached homes in District 10 because these are one of the most sought after categories. In fact, I'm selling 3 right now. And thirdly, I'll be sharing why you might consider selling if you're a landed home owner. There are a few reasons why and different people and different types of owners. I will go into that more detail for you as well. Firstly, in general, private properties in Singapore have reached all-time highs, but the good news is that the acceleration has kind of stabilized, and we know right now that there is a new price acceptance in the market for landed homes. So overall, the whole private property market went up 2.3% in the last quarter of 2024. Okay, yes, it was boosted by new launches and things like that, but that actually gives you a sentiment. Home market is still looking to buy homes and to upgrade and to move their families into bigger places. And I want to show you the graph from 20 years ago because if you had bought 20 years ago a landed home, now there are 3 lines over here that I'm going to share with you. The first line on top represents District 9, 10, 11. District 9, 10, 11 are the heart of, I guess, the most aspirational landed properties. That's where you also get your good class bungalow sales. The second line represents the fringe properties. Now, we've just selected District 15 because District 15 has actually gone up by 25% in the last 3 years alone. You know, in terms of the gains it's made, it's actually made more percentage gains than District 10. And then you also have District 28, which is Yio Chu Kang Seletar. And you would be thinking, oh, it's an outskirt, like can make money. Well, if you look at this graph, the outskirt has also made 300% in 20 years, the same as the fringe, which is 307%. And then in the last 25 years, we're talking about the core 9, 10, 11 having grown 274%. Now, that is whopping numbers to think about. Crazy. You can't even imagine what that looks like. But the thing is, I do know some landed owners precisely are making these gains, and I'm selling their properties now. And we have transactions to prove it as well. I'll share with you in a little bit about the actual transactions, but let's go and see, like, let's say you didn't buy 20 years ago. Let's say you bought 15 years ago, right? So 15 years ago, if you bought, we're talking at about roughly 1,000-ish to 1,200 PSF per land area for a landed property. And if you were in District 10, right, your property would have grown by 89%. If you are in District 15, you would have grown by 136%. And if you're in District 28, so talking about fringe properties, your property would have grown by 141%. Now that's staggering to me as well. And now you're like, no, Sarah, I only just bought like in the last few years. I just bought like, maybe like 5 years ago, things like that. Well, the truth is, even if you bought just 5 to 7 years ago, or even just 3 to 4 years ago, you already have made a very significant uplift in your capital appreciation on the property. So for example, if you bought in 2018 and you are selling today in District 10, you will be looking at a 52% growth in the property price. So let's say you bought $5 million in 2018, you will be expecting to sell right now at 7.5, roughly. And it's very similar numbers for the OCR and the RCR, with the OCR actually outperforming, which means to say that if you actually own any OCR properties, this might be the really interesting chance for you to move to a better location. Because if you had bought, let's say, a $4 to $5 million semi-D just about a few years ago, like a large semi-D, you could be upgrading from that nice semi-D, you could be selling at about 6, 7, and you could be buying into a closer fringe property. Let's say Thomson, you could be buying a semi-detached for $6.3 million. You are looking at improvement in your living area. So that could be one potential idea for you if you own an OCR property to move into a more central location. Now let's look at the transaction volumes of landed properties across the whole of Singapore so you get a sense of where we are in the current market cycle. In 2018 to 2019, you will see a dip in transaction volumes, and that's because it also coincided with a high interest rate period. Once interest rates dropped in 2020, And of course, the entire COVID situation happened. There was a huge influx of money going in because interest rates were almost 0%, at some point like 0.5 to 1%, leading to a huge surge in transactions in 2021. Now, once we had in 2022, the interest rate started going up, and 2023, they were at an all-time high, you can see again that transaction volumes dipped to almost 2018 and 2019 levels. But last year, as interest rates started to ease, because at some point, I personally was paying 4.8% on a floating rate. So last year, transactions increased again because interest rates have eased. And now we're looking at a rough kind of like acceptance of a rough 2.5 to 2.6 kind of percent for interest rates. And when you're talking about high quantum residential properties, every single percentage point makes an even bigger difference because the quantums are much higher compared to, let's say, condominiums, which could be just $2 to $3 million. We're talking about $4, $5, $6, $7, $8 million, a big quantum for you to look on the interest. So landed properties are very, very sensitive to interest rates compared to your condominiums, your HDBs and things like that. And the fact that our graph is going upwards again shows that the market is resilient and looking to buy back because of the hurting interest rates that is causing a lot of buyers to actually stay out. This is an opportune time because it is quite likely that our prices are going to continue to go on rising. And you may say, okay, then why don't I hold my property and hold it for longer? I will go into that in my third section, right, and to why you might consider buying. And if you like how this video is going and you want to subscribe and give this a like, I would be so appreciated because we will have more videos like this to share more market information to empower your decision making. Before I go into that, into why you might consider selling, even though yes, there might be even more potential upside, I'm going to share with you the latest transactions so you know how much people are really making, and they could be your neighbors. All right, they could be people that walk among you and like they've sold and you never know, like, are they really making that much money? Well, I'm going to share with you right now. In this simple table format, we have a few examples of mostly semi-Ds, but I also have put in my own sale, which I worked on last year in December, just to share with you some market information on how much people are actually earning. New sales, these are all January. 7 Mount Sinai Rise sold $8.75 million. They gained $6.15 million. That's a 236% profit. Year-on-year appreciation is 6.76%. They only bought it at 2.6 million in October 2006. So that's a holding period of about 19 years, 18, 19 years. We have 16 Jalan Istimewa, and Jalan Istimewa is a really nice location near the Jalan Jadita Enclave. Sold for $9.8 million. It was bought in May 2009. Capital gain $7.12 million. And that's talking about 9.02% year-on-year appreciation. That is so good. Then we have 43 Jalan Kalawa, that's closer to Orchard, like at One Tree Hill. Bought $3.03 million in January 2000. They've held for 25 years. They sold at $10.88 million. They gained $7.85 million in capital gain. That's a 5.19% year-on-year appreciation. Okay, and finally, we have 55C Namli Garden, bought in March 2018. So that's the kind where they bought just 7 years ago. They bought 5.98. They sold 8.088. They made $2.108 million. That's still a percentage profit of 35% and an annualized gain of 4.38%. So look at these figures. And of course, last but not least, I'm just going to share my Interterrace. It's not a semi-D, but just to share that they bought 4.66 million. They sold 6.1, or rather, I helped them to sell for 6.1. Capital gain 1.44 million. Cash profit 30%. Year-on-year appreciation 6.98%. How good is that? So we beat the high interest rates that were going at like 3 to 4%. We beat it like outright. We're talking almost double of that. If you look at all of these transaction data, of course, that you have different condition of different houses, and we'll go into that in another video to educate you about what might be the reason why different landed properties are valued differently depending on condition, spacing, a lot of factors. But that's not for today. We'll do another video about that another day, and maybe we'll link it up here after the video is done. But I want to share with you then, therefore, what do all these sellers have in common? Now, the first thing that you'll notice is that they all bought into the right asset class. And I'm talking about the landed asset class compared to, let's say, the condominium asset class, because there was a period of time in the early 2000s that condominiums were going for more than $1 million, and landed houses, you could have bought them for also just under $2 million. There was a period of time like that. And the gap between condominiums and landed properties at that time was not that huge. Most of these sellers had bought into a time where they chose to push a little bit into a better asset class, a better performing asset class, compared to just like staying comfortable in the condo class, which would have been more comfortable financially. And of course, I don't want you guys to stress financially, but if you're watching this as a landed buyer, if you know I'm talking about landed sellers, I know that it's very important for you to have at least, we're talking about a year's worth of mortgage saved up in case of a rainy day. It's absolutely unwise if you're going in with, like, let's say only 3 months of buffer. That's definitely not enough, especially if you have a family. So please have a buffer, please don't max out your loan. But I'm saying that these sellers made a decision at that point of time to buy the right asset class. And the second thing is that all of them have sold after a clear market uplift. If you look at the graphs again, all the way from the last 25 years, you will notice that it hasn't always been a consistent straight line going up. There have been times of stagnancy, even dips. So for example, 2008 to 2009, there was a dip. If you look into after the cooling measures happened in 2013 all the way down towards 2017, there was also a slight dip. So if you bought at 2018, just after you see the market stagnate already for a few years and okay, the market is stagnant, that's where in the next 7 years, you would have made that huge capital gain. But even then, you can see that if you had bought 2021 and selling now, just like my 40 Mount Sinai sellers rather, because they bought and then they've sold, this particular group has also made significant gains, right? We're talking about anywhere from 4 plus to even 7% of year-on-year capital appreciation. We want you to know that there's always a chance for you to enter, but there's also a good chance for you to exit, because now that the market has kind of like plateaued slightly due to the high interest rates in 2023, we don't know when the next market uplift is going to be. For all you know, we could be entering a period of stagnancy that happened in 2013 to 2018, where things kind of just move sideways, right? We're not having like a massive uplift, right? It just goes up a little bit at a time. If we do enter a situation like that, you would kind of be risking the opportunity cost of using the capital gains that you have to either reinvest in other products that can give you even higher gains. I mean, I'm not a financial advisor, so you would have to get your financial advisor to share with you on what they could do, or your banker. And if you want a private banker, I can also recommend you some. That is the risk, right? Because we don't know when the next market uplift would be. And so going to my last section of, therefore, why should you sell? Are there certain profiles that should sell versus not sell? And I have basically 3 big groups of people that I believe prime for selling your landed properties. Now, the first one is if you don't even have your kids staying with you, they're grown up, they potentially have moved overseas because they study overseas, or they could already have their own homes. And when you were younger, you dreamed of having your children stay with you and your grandchildren stay with you. And that kind of multi-generational living is really the ideal for everyone. But the truth is that, let's say if you had 3 kids, it would be really difficult for all 3 kids to stay with you together. And for many young families, myself included, and I speak for myself and perhaps people in my generation, as a mom of 4, we do want our own space to build our own thing and lead our own lives and make our own decisions. Even though we might be living in a smaller space, might not be as spacious and wide, we do want the chance to build our own family culture, build our own family rules in our own space. That could be one reason why, even though you have a huge landed house, like your adult children may not want to all stay with you. Maybe like one of them wants to stay with you, but it might be difficult for you to use up all the rooms because you just have so much space. Now, the second potential reason why you might want to move is that your kids are grown up. Now, the second kind of person who might like to consider selling off your landed and right-sizing into a smaller place might be that if you do have grown-up kids who are still staying with you, but they're not like grown up like, late 20s, 30s and building their own families. They might be late teens or early 20s. They might be, starting their new careers. And honestly, because they're in the building of their identity phase, they're not really home that much. And they just come home, like my daughter sometimes, to just sleep after being out the whole day with their friends, right? And so like this huge house that you have now feels very empty because they no longer need the playroom. They no longer need the study. They no longer kind of hang out and sit and watch TV in the living room anymore. They're all like on their own phones and watching their own thing, their own Netflix. So if you have children who are already at that stage of life, right, actually having a slightly smaller place where everybody gets to interact more often and you kind of see people in a more common space might actually even help with your family dynamic a little better than having like a big house where everybody's upstairs, downstairs, and you actually hardly see them. Because anyway, they spend so much time outside. And I do have a client who I'm speaking to who has that kind of situation as well. And it's a little bit sad, because sometimes you feel like, wow, I long for the time that my kids were still running around using the study room, make them do the tuition in that piano room that I designed for them, And it's so beautiful, right? It's so beautiful that you created that home that fit the need of your family in their growing up years. But the truth is, and the truth hurts sometimes, but the truth will set you free. The truth is that your children no longer need that space anymore. Soon they're going to potentially get married and potentially buy their own houses and flats, BTO, whatever, condos, and even more, the space will be unused. And so if you can start this transition of right sizing to a place where you can still have that communal time together and potentially even be at a place with better public transport so that they don't have to be like walking in all the time if they don't have a car, they might even appreciate that. So that's a second profile. If you have a life situation like that, you might want to consider as well. And the common thing between the first two profiles is that the exit will allow you to have an excess of capital that you can use to invest, to either retire, to plan your legacy, to also do traveling. You'll have a lot of freedom because you've been sitting on all this cash that has been locked up into your asset. Many Singaporeans are like that. We're kind of asset rich, cash poor. And how much richer do you want to be, right? When you're sitting on a landed asset that's worth like, let's say, $8 to $10 million, right? Because you have potentially, you could buy anywhere from like a $2, $3, $4 million condo. You have a lot of options to right size depending on what you need. And all that excess could be used and put into the next generation. It could be used into investments. It could be used into retirement planning, etc. and traveling. And finally, the last profile that I'm thinking about is not like these right sizers, but the potential upgraders. You already own a landed property and you bought it in the last like maybe 3 to even 7, 8 years. And at that time, you had bought like an entry level landed, like a small semi-D or like an inter-terrace, a corner terrace. That particular property that you bought, which was maybe only about $3, $4, $5 million, could now be worth $6, $7, $8 million. And so, like my clients who sold 40 Mount Sinai Drive, they sold their inter-terrace that they bought at 4.66 or 6.1. And with that excess capital, because they made like $1.5 million from there, they used the excess capital to be able to then fund the down payment of their next purchase, which was an $8.83 million semi-detached home, 3,600 square feet land, 6,000 built up. Amazing. If you want a better quality of life because you're still at the phase where you're building family, you still need more rooms, you're still building your career, you need work from home, you need dedicated areas for your studying, you're still entertaining and hosting guests, having a much bigger landed home, given that you can already make money off your entry level landed, might be another reason why you should consider not getting too comfortable in your entry level landed home and actually selling and making the next jump, because that property, that $8.8 million property that my clients just bought, you could easily imagine that going up to 10 or even 11 million, $12 million in 10 to 15 years. Whereas could you imagine getting that kind of capital appreciation with a terrace? Maybe, but less likely. Those are the 3 types of profiles I feel should really consider looking into a landed sale. And of course, I know that you have lots of questions, right? Because you'd be like, but I still have a loan on my landed house. Can I actually right size and still have a capital gain? And I have got you covered, because I'm going to do that in my next video to show you a real life case study calculation that I've done for my own clients. And they have had a loan on the property as well. And I want to show you how that, assuming that you're still at the age less than 75, where you can still take a small loan, you can essentially transfer that loan into your next purchase and still come out tops with at least $2 to $3 million for you to play around with for your retirement. Sounds good? So if you like that, do subscribe, give us a like, because I'll be doing more videos like that every single week. And if you have more ideas or comments about what you'd like me to talk about, do give a comment below, and I'll see you at the next video. I'm Sarahxmiracle.